We will run every experiment 10 times for 20,000 cycles. And these are the results for the first experiment that you can see there, the environment to remind. And here we have the reactive layer performance. So as it was expected, the reactive layer cannot solve the task because the light cannot be sensed. It is not high enough to trigger an action. So all the trajectories of the robots are to go forward. And this is the adaptive layer performance. In the combined model, we see that, well, that in both cases, the adaptive layer can solve the task, but more accurately in the case of the distributed model than in the case of the adaptive layer. This might be due to the noise in the motors, which is which is reduced in the case of the distributed model due to the integration in time. In terms of ratio targets divided into trials, we can see here that at the level of the reactive layer, combined and distributed models are at the chance level. So the robot only reaches the target when coming from the middle path. In the adaptive layer, we see that now the performance is higher, and still significantly higher in the case of the distributed model. And this is might be due to the motor's noise, which affects more to the combined model. At the contextual layer level, we see that both are very high, have a high performance, but also the distributed model has the performance in the distributed model is significantly higher also, as it happens in the adaptive layer. So from these experiments, we could conclude that the adaptive layer behavior was positively influenced by the distributed model. In the case of the ambiguous task, so we can see also here the environment, we saw that, as expected, the adaptive layer cannot really have a high performance. And in both cases, well, this would be the trajectory of the robot in both cases. And at the contextual layer level, we see also when there is no noise in the camera, the robot can very accurately, more in the case of the distributed model, but in both cases with a high probability, reach the target. However, when the noise in the camera is too high, in this case is the highest we use, which is 10%, the trajectories are not that accurate. But instead, the sequentiality is lost in some occasions, which makes the robot fail to reaching the target. And also in terms, well, as I said, the motor noise affects also more to the combined model, as it happened before. And when the camera has the noise in the camera is very high, also the sequentiality is lost. And also, once again, in terms of performance, in the ratio targets divided into trials, we see that the distributed model, which is the one in blue, has a better performance when the noise in the camera goes up, so increases. If we look at the difference between these two distributions, we see that the difference is higher when the camera noise is between 5 and 6%, and goes to more or less the same level when the noise in the camera is too high, because in both cases it is very probable that the robot loses the sequentiality. So from here we can conclude that the combined model was more affected by the noise in the camera than the distributed model. And in the last task, you can see again there the environment. We did the same, and we increased the noise in the camera from 0 to 10%. And we saw here that the distributed model is less affected by the camera than the combined model, and also has a significantly higher performance when there is no noise at all. If we again see the difference in these two different cases, we see that the difference in performance is quite high till a noise of 5 or 6%, but it goes down when the noise is too high, because it happens again the same as it happened before, that when the noise is too high, the sequentiality in both cases is lost. So from here, again, we could conclude that the combined model was more affected by the noise than the distributed model. And therefore, we could generalize our results and say that what we found in the previous experiment could be generalized to this one also. And to conclude, from these two different models, we saw that having one area only in the brain to compute order and interval of actions, or having two, meant different ways of storing information in memory. The first one, the combined model, which is the first one you can see here, meant a continuously memorized movements. So the movements that the robot had in memory had discrete movements, discrete parts. Whereas the distributed model meant a compression of information in memory, which we could maybe think about having an abstract perceptual concept stored in memory together with a complex actions, which this means, for instance, having stored in memory the concept of a glass together with the complex action, which could mean breaching the glass. These two models also meant different decision-making protocols or mechanisms. One is continuous in the sense that whenever there is an action coming from one of the different layers, it is instantaneously executed, while the second one means a time integration. So first the actions are integrated in time until they reach a threshold and they are executed. We also saw that the information in the distributed model is more sparse, so we have more segments responding to the same kind of stimulus, and more robust to information in the distributed model is more sparse, which means that less parts of the memory respond to one stimulus, and more robust to noise. And this could suggest, but it's only a speculation, an interaction between hippocampus and cerebellum, with the actions transformed by the prefrontal cortex. And that's it.